Hello everyone, welcome to the M3GAN channel. Hope you're doing good and well and ready for another Saturday premiere and another horror tier list on the channel. So this is where I rate horror films that I've seen recently for the first time into different tiers. And if you're not familiar with the tier list system, you probably are if you're watching this video, I guess, but S tier is where I put all the best films, all the best items go into the top tier, into S tier, and all my least favourite stuff, all my least favourite films go into the D tier, which is the worst of these films, or what I, in my opinion, would say are the worst films here. So obviously, yeah, subjective. Obviously, your view on this art may well be different from mine. So yeah, 8 films. I guess the reason why I'm only doing 8 films is probably because watching the Conjuring universe films took up quite a bit of time, and so I didn't watch quite as many horror films as I did for my last tier list, for the tier list of horror films I watched for the first time over the autumn season. But yeah, so also for this tier list, I'm going to do some themes. We're going to do some themes, and it's going to relate to Valentine's Day. I think is the next thing in the calendar. So we're going to do relationship themes for this tier list for these horror films this time, which could be interesting. So let's start with a S tier. Should be the best kind of relationship. I guess that's a match made in heaven, something like that. Right. Next up, we're going to have relationship material, the next one down. So I guess for the decent films, the okay films, let's say that's like having a date. It's a date. Thinking about, you know, a nice date with, I don't know, dinner, steak, wine, whatever your kind of dinner dates are like. That's what that is, the middle tier. Next up, we're going to have C as breakup. This is where things start going south. Things start getting bad here for these films. This is the breakup. And even worse than that, I think we're going to have to call this the divorce tier. Let's go with acrimonious divorce for the worst films in this list. Alright, so yes, that's going to be my least favourite film's going to be in that tier. So let's crack on with this list without any further ado or chit chat. So first up, we've got Smile. Smile came out last year, was directed by Parker Finn, stars Sosie Bacon. Pretty solid, creepy horror film, and I found the pacing to be to be a little on the slow side for my liking, but the scenes that were good were really good. And I particularly like the scene where the little boy opens up this gift, and what's in the gift is kind of shocking. I won't give it away. But it's the reaction of everyone around the little boy that's and the absolute horror of the embarrassment on the face of Sosie Bacon's character that makes this scene what it is, and for me is the standout scene of this entire film. But one scene doesn't make a film, and there are a couple of other good scenes too, but I think Smile for me is going to go into It's a Date. Therefore, I just felt it didn't always, it felt just a tiny bit of a drag for me, but the scenes that were good, as I say, were really good. So I think it's kind of a mixed bag a little bit, but a good enough film to see once. I would recommend watching this one maybe once if you want a good creepy horror film. Next up, we have Hatching, which is a Finnish horror movie. The debut for the director Hannah Bergholm, who directed this film. And wow, for a debut, this is a really, really quite excellent horror film, I think. Kind of original too. This little girl who is trying to impress her mum, basically become a successful gymnast. She discovers an egg and brings it home. Now, prior to her discovering this egg, her mum was actually very cruel to this bird. She kind of grievously harmed this bird, and the girl ended up having to kill it. Her daughter ended up having to kill the bird, and that's thereafter that happening. She discovers the egg of was basically the unhatched egg, and the bird that she killed was its mother basically. So interestingly, a lot of these films on this list, they have mother and daughter themes going on, and that is purely by coincidence that has happened. And I happen to have seen 8 films that are mother and daughter films. It's kind of weird that there's that theme running through a lot of these films. There's that mother and daughter relationship, which is quite key to the movies, that purely is by chance, interestingly. But yeah, this was a really good film. Performances are excellent. You could cut the tension like a knife. The way this film ramped up the tension throughout its runtime was something else, actually. If anything, for this film, I felt it could have maybe even done more with the characters, or had a little bit more happen and unfold. But what you did get happen and unfold was still pretty good. The climax at the end, I thought, was a pretty good payoff for the film as well. It's got to be at least relationship for me. I'm almost tempted to put a match made in heaven, but I'm just going to be a little strict here for now. I'm going to put Hatching from last year into relationship material. Good film, very good film. Next up, we have Hostile from 2017. A film which is kind of marketed and advertised like it was going to be a horror film, an apocalyptic horror film, but in the end was much more like a romantic drama kind of film, which for me was kind of strange. But actually, if you just judge this film as more of a romantic drama, it's actually a pretty good film. It surprised me. The performances of the main cast were really good. I liked how this woman is kind of, she's reflecting on her relationship, past relationship, while she's also trying to deal with this monster that she's can't seem to get away from, and she's also, she was a drug addict as well, and the way that's dealt with, I think, is really, really good in the film. And I think it kind of feels like the film deals with those issues pretty maturely, and it actually, as I say, as more serious a film, it's actually pretty good. It just doesn't really have. I didn't think the horror elements were that great and enough to sort of tie in. It felt like the juxtaposition was kind of strange, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But a good film all the same. I think this is going to go into It's a Date, at least at the top of It's a Date, I would say. I actually think I enjoyed this a little more than Smile, which surprised me. Went in with very low expectations to Hostile because I'd seen the film ratings before I watched it. But Hostile turned out to actually be a very interesting film. I actually would recommend watching it just the once even, and seeing what you think, because it's not really what you expect at the start of the movie. Okay, next up we have Incantation from last year as well, another film from last year. All of these are pretty recent, barring Orphan, which was 2009. So Incantation, a found footage, Taiwanese found footage film, which was actually, it was okay. It developed the story reasonably well, but I found it was a little over the top. Saying that about horror films doesn't feel quite right, but there was something for me that didn't work with this film, and didn't quite keep me locked into it. I know a lot of people, the thing is, I like found footage films, but I've seen a lot of them, so unless I see something that I find particularly new or interesting, I suppose it's got to be something that really hooks me into the film. I just didn't really find it with this one. I think I'm going to have to put this into Breakup. I didn't really enjoy it. I think I went into Incantation with actually quite high expectations, maybe that because they weren't met for this one. This is why I'm putting it into a slightly lower tier. You may love this film, and fair play to you if you do, but for me, I just couldn't quite get into Incantation. It just felt like something wasn't quite right with the film for me. As I say, maybe it just felt a little too over the top and silly, when I felt like the film required a bit more seriousness to be pulled off successfully. I don't know in this instance. So anyway, that's Incantation. Next up we have M3GAN, directed by Jared Johnston, starring Alison Williams and Violet McGraw as Katie, and Alison Williams is playing Gemma, the mum, so you've got the mother and daughter thing coming into play here again. And M3GAN is this absolutely... the funny thing is, I went to the cinema to see this, and the audience were laughing more than they were gasping, or that they were in shock at anything, which is a sign that I felt this was almost slightly more comedy than horror in a way at times watching this. The horror elements were there, and if anything, actually, I kind of went in expecting slightly more of a slasher than I got here in the end, which is probably the wrong expectation to have looking back at this film. It was rated at 15 as well, so there wasn't much gore in this, really. If anything, actually, I thought that was an area of the film I would like to see more of, was more of the kills elements of M3GAN. But she was super creepy, super funny, with the weird movements, the weird dance things she does that's really strange. You just kind of look at her sitting with a blank stare, and it was making the audience members laugh at just that in the cinema showing I went to. I'm going to put M3GAN into the relationship material tier, which sounds kind of weird. But yeah, that was a very good film. Really enjoyed it, and thoroughly entertained by it as well. Next up, we have No One Gets Out Alive, which I watched on Netflix. It was directed by Santiago Menegini. It's from 2 years ago, from 2021, I believe. And you know what? I went in with low expectations again. I made the mistake of seeing the rating for this film before I actually watched it as well. But I thought this was quite good. The problem for me with this film was it didn't make much sense. It made little sense to me, kind of whatsoever. But saying that, the horror elements, the scenes that were intense, were very, very well done. I liked the characters, apart from the two horrible men in this. Reds and his brother were just ghastly characters. That yeah, I didn't like at all because they were just horrible, horrible people. And so No One Gets Out Alive. Yeah, good film actually, but just didn't make sense. I'm going to put it in its date at the bottom there. For No One Gets Out Alive. Would I recommend watching this one? There's a really cool monster actually in this film, although again the monster and how and everything too, I didn't really get the monster much either. Just kind of suddenly it's there. But anyway, No One Gets Out Alive is a date apparently. There we go. So next up we have Orphan from 2009, starring Vera Farmiga from the Conjuring films that I recently ranked on the channel. Don't forget to check out the Conjuring franchise ranking if you wanna, if you're into those films. So Vera Farmiga, yeah, everything she's in. It's just me with Vera Farmiga. She has this kind of natural confidence, I think, to her acting. She's always convincing, always really convincing. You know, let me know in the comments if you think the same thing with this actress. She's just got something really natural about her acting, and so a lot of her scenes and her performance in this film again is as with the Conjuring films. It's very, very good, and her and Esther, played by Isabel Furman, was also superb in this movie. Again, you've got the weird mother-daughter thing happening here. And she was this character Esther, this orphan child, was so manipulative, but you couldn't take your eyes off the screen when she was doing her manipulating of things and turning family members on each other and stuff very, very kind of cleverly. But she was, yeah, something else to watch. I think because this film, I thought the story was good, the characters were great, the acting was excellent. The build-ups were pretty good. The horror moments were also well executed. This can only be in one tier. Match made in heaven for Orphan from 2009. Anything to criticise about it? It was quite slow initially to get going. All of that was serving some of the development of characters well, though, so that's only a minor criticism, but I did think it was a very slow start to the film, so if you're impatient and you like your horror to get going quickly, you might not like Orphan quite as much as I did. But I do think it's a pretty top-notch horror film otherwise, and so it goes into S tier. So last up, and I would say by not least, but last but probably least, is The Cellar from last year again. Starring, of course, Alicia Cuthbert, who you might know from films from the 2000s. I mean, Girl Next Door comes to mind. Was she in House of Wax as well, I think? Another 2000s TV series as well, 24, right, I think. This was directed by Brendan Muldowney. So this girl called Ellie, who is the daughter of, I don't know the character of the mum's name now, has gone from the Alicia Cuthbert's character, and walks down into a cellar, and she goes missing, and the whole film revolves around the family, in particular Alicia Cuthbert's character, trying to work out what's happened to her daughter, and the mystery gradually unfolds. But unfortunately, the mysterious elements of this film aren't interesting enough to really, I found, to keep me engaged, and I lost interest in the film pretty quickly because I thought the character development wasn't particularly good. They didn't put enough really meat to the bone of the character backgrounds in this film, I found as well. So, I can't really sort of say too much positive about this one. I think The Cellar is, as I say, it's going to go into the divorce tier. it's an acrimonious divorce. So yeah, sorry all those who are fans of The Cellar and Elisha Cuthbert as well. I am sorry about this, but The Cellar is going into the basement. The Cellar. Alright, thanks everybody for watching. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and everything, and let me know which of these films you enjoy, if you enjoy any of these, what you like the best, what you like the least. And don't forget as well to recommend me any films you think I should see, any horror films, that is, that you think I should watch and that I might enjoy. Otherwise, for me, take care everybody. Until next time, until the next video, bye for now.